Bakuman is the worst manga about making manga, and in today's video essay roast review, I will explain why. If it's been a while since you read Bakuman, let me give you a refresher. Psycho and Shujin have teamed up to make their hotshot mangaka dreams a reality. To stay motivated, Psycho promises the girl of his dreams, Miho Azuki, that they'll get married once he makes a successful manga, and Azuki promises they'll get married once she becomes a successful seiyuu. Only once those two conditions are met can they wed. To make sure they keep laser focused on their goals, they limit their contact with each other. All the while, Psycho keeps thinking about his gay and dead uncle who died a corrosive death from making manga. Psycho and Shujin work super duper hard and meet all kinds of wacky characters on their path to making the best manga. Eventually, Psycho marries Azuki, and the two drive off into the sunset in the car his uncle always wanted. Even in the end, it's all about this guy's uncle. So this is a 20-volume series to say how badly Protag-kun wanted to fillet his uncle. Which, fantastic. No notes on that part of the story. It's perfect. While the oven preheats for this roast, I'll say what's good about Bakuman. I can see very directly why so many people read Bakuman, went, hell yes, and tried their hand at making their own manga. Art that inspires you to make your own is, by all measures and metrics, incredibly cool. The main Bakuman duo have that never-give-up attitude that's seen in so many shonen protagonists, and if you need a personal hype man to inspire you to go after your dreams, Shonen Jump protags are as good as they get. Psycho and Shujin are acutely aware of their shortcomings, and, all things considered, they're incredibly harsh on themselves. I didn't know how to write or draw in high school, just getting out of bed was enough of an accomplishment. But these two hold themselves to an incredibly high standard, because they want to make the best manga, and they're not going to settle. They're always pushing themselves to their absolute limit, because the manga industry is so brutal. And that's inspiring. You see these two kids giving it their all, it makes you want to give it your all too. So despite its flaws, this core mindset is why I continued Bakuman all the way through to the end. They're doing their best, so I want to root for them. And then when I put the book down, I want to push myself a little bit harder too. In terms of propaganda to make you work on your art a little bit harder, Bakuman is one of the best. My favorite arc was when that guy made an entire after-school campus for market testing manga. If you don't remember it, it's because it's one of the last arcs in the series, and could be dismissed as a byproduct of seasonal rot. However, the levels of insanity in that arc were truly enjoyable. Like, who does this? Why are you doing this? Can I do this? My second favorite part, when the rockstar dude, as in he has a singing career and a sizable fan base, decides to take a swing at making manga. He unfairly uses his pre-existing audience to dominate reader popularity polls, which sucks for our main duo, because they do not have a pre-existing fan base. And that's where Bakuman is at its most interesting, when it uses larger-than-life characters to wrestle with different philosophical concepts. It's a series concerned with the status of pure art and commercial art, and seems ultimately comfortable with existing somewhere in between, which is pretty neat. If more Bakuman arcs could feel closer to iChill 21 and ramp up the absurdity, it would make for a much stronger overall experience. I want more hypotheticals bordering on unreality to make me question the nature of making manga. And the series does begin with a hell of a hypothetical. The artist and writer team are incredibly privileged. The story does not make any attempts to hide this. They're both academically gifted, come from mostly supportive families, they have no financial troubles, and they are able to secure a quiet working space and art supplies from the get-go. But even under these circumstances, they have to fight their way to the top. Bakuman is saying that even under the best of circumstances, making manga is a real grind. And hey, I appreciate that sentiment. Because it's true, manga is definitely a grind. Despite these borderline fantastical circumstances, Bakuman does get into a lot of the nitty-gritty technical talk. And since it's not afraid to give this insider's look into the manga industry, it's regarded as more real than the other series about making manga. It certainly does its job at giving the audience an intimate behind-the-scenes look at making manga. So if you take Bakuman as an instruction manual on manga or a wake-up slap to get back to work, it's fantastic. However, Bakuman is ultimately a fictional narrative, as in it's a story with characters and motivations. And that is where the vibes are absolutely off. Characters in Bakuman are one-dimensional at best, irritating at their worst. I'm sure that's by design. If you're aiming to make an exaggerated how-to-draw manga book, there's less space for character studies, so you can get more into the technical instructions. And that's fine. Nobody's giving Scott McCloud shit for weak characterization in understanding comics. Here's an excerpt touching on this concept, albeit more about the visual language of comics. And with that in mind, I can't help but compare Bakuman to Death Note, partially because no one could go 30 seconds without mentioning it was created by the same author/artist team, and because both series have a similar exposition-heavy writing style. Death Note also had pretty thin characterization. The fun came from the different character strategies. So Bakuman is just Death Note, except we've got lower stakes, no otherworldly fantasy elements, the impending threats are loosely defined, and there's a guy in your local anime club who treats Bakuman as very serious and very important work, which is annoying. and on top of all of that, the characterization is just as hollow as Death Note. So, just what's so special here? The fact that they're talking about capital M manga? Well, yes. But, please allow me to reiterate what I said at the start. I get the appeal of Bakuman, really. There's infinite media about the process of making manga, and the unique appeal here is seeing this artist hero's journey delivered in a 20-volume shonen adventure. There's something about the tone and aesthetic that might click with you harder than, say, something like Manban. Even with these qualifiers of Bakuman being so beloved to artists, which will make it resonate differently than your average shonen, I still mentally compare it to Death Note. And as a reader, not as an artist looking for inspiration, not as a mangaka hopeful, when I take Bakuman in as a narrative, it feels a few notches below the fun of Death Note. Which brings me to the best Bakuman character, Eiji, who's the L of Bakuman. He's a being of pure autism and manga making, exaggerated to a comical degree, so please, give me a spin-off about Eiji's everyday life as Eiji. Unfortunately, Eiji is mostly kept as a looming big bad threat for our protagonists. We don't see them interacting as much as I'd like. I remember his scenes were mostly cutaways from the main plot to tease what the villain's cooking up this week. Keeping this distance for such a long period of time is such a waste of a good character. And speaking of mostly off-screen characters, the romance in Bakuman blows. Once Sugumi Oba was notified that Light/L had been officially canonized as one of the top 10 sexiest yaoi couples, he treated this honor with an appropriate reverence. What choice did he have, other than attempting to recreate the spark a second time? As such, there's plenty of ship teasing and all-around gay moments with the main Bakuman duo. But this time around, this would-be yaoi couple comes with a heavy helping of plausible deniability. You see, they can get more explicit than Light/L. Psycho could very directly and explicitly say that him and Psycho are one soul and two bodies. But it's fine. These two characters have women that they're directly interested in. Therefore, not gay. It doesn't matter that one of the girls is mostly off-screen, and the other girl doesn't have much going on other than being the token chick of the group. For the one or two viewers out there who've never been in a men's-only Russian bathhouse, Bakuman ship teasing gives me a similar vibe. There's certain same-sex spaces that have a heightened interpersonal closeness because there is an unspoken assumption that everyone here is straight. But to a fly-on-the-wall observer, everything happening seems pretty gay. Putting this mindset in a manga is cowardly, and I hate every shonen manga that does this. So if you as an author do this, I will not water your plants for you when you go on vacation. The text of Bakuman makes it explicit that their bond goes beyond a typical bromance, while also constantly reminding you that they both have women at home. Like, I know what you're doing here, man. I'm not stupid. And I'm not the only one who saw through this ploy. Let's take a look at the Pixiv tagging data. Way more people are making Death Note yaoi than Bakuman yaoi. And on to my next gripe. The sexism in Bakuman. It's so old-timey that I have to do a double take like, oh, shit, oh, wait. Do you actually believe this? Who defrosted you from the 1800s? What the fuck is going on here? The men in Bakuman are written as humans, and the women are just boring old stereotypes. This topic's been covered in depth by plenty of other writers, so for further readings about Bakuman sexism, I've included in the description different articles and perspectives tackling this subject. I tried to keep things balanced, so one of the articles approaches this from a Christian perspective. Yes, this is an issue so horrendous that it's a common enemy to both traditional Christians and liberal feminists. Anyway, if Bakuman sucks, why do I care this much? When everyone's slobbering over something, this is your time to shine, because having a contrarian opinion makes you a hero. And of course, the world desperately needs to know about your brave new role as the main character in this saga of dumb opinions. So if no one else has the guts to take on the Herculean task of trashing Bakuman, I guess it's up to me to be the undisputed champion of its haters. Because you can't bring up manga about manga without someone bringing up Bakuman. If you make a YouTube video about making manga, you are legally required to play clips of the Bakuman anime as you read the Wikipedia definition of karoshi. The last time I casually mentioned to someone that I make manga, Blake from the Anime Club, of course, it's always Blake. He had some killer insight. Before even glancing at my work, this guy dropped his wisdom. A foreigner can't make it in the manga industry. Naturally, only people with zero experience making manga love to hit me with that one. I didn't even waste my breath explaining why it's total garbage. I just told him, hey, I'm just enjoying the ride. So after hearing this, he put his hand on my shoulder, like we were in a Russian bathhouse. He leaned in, all serious, and he told me, you got a long way to go before you have a shot at Shonen Jump. He put a little extra stink on Shonen Jump, pronouncing it Shonen Jumpu, to establish his dominance as alpha nerd. Before I could even tell him I don't draw shonen, this guy steamrolls ahead, insisting that it's crucial, no, vital, that I read Bakuman. Because according to Blake, once I consumed Bakuman, the secrets of making manga would finally reveal themselves to me like some sacred scroll of nerd enlightenment. So I nodded along before making up some excuse about having to catch the bus home. But here's what I really think. Fuck you, Blake. I did read Bakuman, and it sucks.